So I have a number of things I'm playing with talking about tonight, and I think it'll be a little bit of this and a little bit of that, kind of on the theme of kind of what is meditation and why would we do it? In what ways can it be beneficial? What is this mysterious thing? I've given a mini teaching already off the top there, introducing the idea of different types of or qualities of or strengthening the mind qualities of meditation. I talked about focus or concentration, where we develop over time the ability to lock and load the attention, so to speak, on a single object, let's say the breath, and develop the ability to pay really good attention to the breath for an extended period of time. There may still be thinking going on, but it's sort of floating around in the background. It's not really sticky thinking. It's not grabbing the mind away from the breath and running down a rabbit hole. If you're with the breath, paying attention to the object, the concentration's reasonably good, or maybe very good, and the thoughts are not particularly distracting. They're like clouds moving through the proverbial sky, moving on their own way, and we don't need to fuss about them or get involved with them. I talked about the calming or the shamatha aspect of meditation or mindfulness practice. And that is both something we practice, and it's also an outcome of the practice. So by simply attempting to watch your breath with some diligence for 20, 30 minutes a day, you will eventually start to notice your focus is getting better off the cushion. You'll eventually start to notice that you're calmer more often. And what a lot of us notice when we begin meditating and training the mind is that something happens of an annoying level, not a big drama, nothing terrible, something annoying. You jump in the car to drive to Victoria, you realize you're low on gas. Oh, darn it. You weren't aware of that. You didn't intend to stop and fill up for gas. So it's a minor annoyance. And what you'll notice is a minor annoyance will come up like that. You go to make a recipe and it turns out you're out of one of the ingredients. You thought you had it and it's not in the fridge. Oh, it's a minor annoyance. And what you'll start to notice, many of us catch this in the beginning and go, well, that was cool, is you won't freak out about it. The minor annoyance will happen. And if you're someone, and not all of you are, but if you're someone who's often fairly perturbed by minor annoyances, oh, darn it, for goodness sakes, I thought I had gas. There'll come a time where you'll notice you don't have enough gas, and you'll be kind of like, oh, all right, I guess I got to stop at the gas station. And there won't be a big emotional reaction. There won't be a bunch of negativity around arguably a pretty small annoyance. This is one of the signs that the mind is starting to develop, arguably. Arguably, it's a sign. So what does that mean in the most simple terms? Well, to oversimplify, if you train the mind some, if you meditate some, you'll most likely start to experience and notice that you're a little less reactive some of the time. Less of the knee-jerk reaction. I'm carefully saying some of the time. I certainly can be very reactive still at times, even sometimes around minor stuff. But I certainly noticed as I began to practice more many years ago that more often an annoyance would happen and I'd have more what is called in Buddha Dharma equanimity toward it. Just sort of, oh, well, that's not what I want, but there it is. There wouldn't be this strong negative reaction and all the story making. And you know, we all kind of laugh a bit wryly when I say the following stuff, I think, which is, how often have you, or I'm sure it's not you, but someone you know, had something annoying happen? I don't know, they were on the phone with the TELUS representative for half an hour trying to solve a simple problem. And they get all headed up about it. And they're having all this suffering and consternation and reactivity. As I said, I'm sure it's not you, it's just your friend. But they become very upset about said things. And then they decide to, take it to the streets or Facebook. So they put it on Facebook. Damn those TELUS people. I was on there and they couldn't solve my problem and I just needed them to switch my plan and give me more US minutes and it took half an hour and what's wrong with these people? So not only are you creating consternation for yourself, oh, let's make it public. Let's just put our consternation out there. For what? Oh, you know what for. Pity me. Oh, I had such a rough time. Commiserate with me. Tell me how much you hate the TELUS people too. Reactivity, drama, consternation, and let's spread the love. Goodness gracious, this is what the mind does when we let it run free. It does far worse than that. It's a pretty benign example, just far, far worse than that. So the more you train the mind, the more you'll start to notice, oh, before I would have made a really big deal about that. And this time, I handled it a lot better. Again, hopefully you're wiser than I and you'll progress on the path more quickly than I am, but maybe that will happen most of the time. But at the very least, you'll notice it happening some of the time. And when you notice you didn't freak out, when you notice you didn't have an overreaction to an annoyance or an inconvenience, give yourself a pat on the back, because it's a very big deal. It actually is. Imagine if you could live your life not having reactions when things don't go the way you want. Wow, welcome to adulthood. I don't think any of us are there yet. Imagine you could live a life not having a big negative reaction when things don't go the way you want. Arguably, that's Buddhism. To not have a big reaction when things don't go the way you want. That's essentially the first, second, and third noble truth of Buddha Dharma, which for those of you who don't know off the top of your head are essentially, the first noble truth says everything changes. It's the nature of reality that things don't stay the same. The second noble truth says some of the ways things change we don't like, and some of them we like, right? We get a lovely bouquet of flowers and we like that. We get someone say something unkind and critical toward us, we don't like that. So there are changes. Some of them we like, some of them we don't like. And the problem isn't the change itself. The problem is, and the way we cause suffering for ourselves, is not liking the changes, freaking out about them. And the third noble truth says the way to stop suffering is to stop freaking out when things change. That's Buddhism. I'm actually not even oversimplifying. That's the first three noble truths. Things change. Some of the changes won't be things you like. Don't freak out about it. You'll be fine and you won't suffer. That's Buddhism. So, why meditate? Because the more we train our mind, as you aforementioned heard, we are less likely to freak out when things don't go our way, at least the small stuff. So practice on the small stuff tonight or tomorrow when something doesn't go the way you want, inconvenient, annoying, difficult, etc. See if you can accept it with grace. Oh, that was a change. Don't care for that change, but I can be fine no matter what. I can be fine whether I need to stop and fill up the car with gas to make my trip, or whether the car is already full with gas. Either way, I can be fine. It's not about the car. It's not about the gas. It's about your head. It's about the mind. The mind is the only gas tank you need to worry about filling up and keeping topped up with meditation, with wholesome thoughts, with wholesome activities, because that way you're not going to run out of gas and end up stuck in an emotional tantrum, end up stuck in a bad state, end up stuck in the consequences of bad decisions. Train the mind and you will notice less reactivity. No, you won't notice it all the time unless you're a fully awake Buddha, and I'm not. But you'll notice it more often, and I meant it, I really mean it. When you notice yourself not having a big negative reaction to something that doesn't go your way, give yourself a pat on the back. That's a major win. It's a major sign that the mind is improving. The Buddha taught one thing. He taught suffering and the cessation of suffering. What are the causes and conditions that lead to suffering in the mind? And what can we do to dismantle those causes and conditions so there is not suffering in the mind? Well, suffering in the mind is caused by us wanting reality to be different than it is. That's it. I can go home now. My work here is done. Suffering is caused by us wanting things to be different than they are. How's that working out for you? Just because you want the car to be filled with gas, you want it to be different than it is. Does it work? Do you go, oh, I really want it to be full of gas? And it changed? No. It is what it is. But you can take simple action to remediate the situation. And you can do it with a smile on your face and a hum on your lips and a great mind state. You don't need to do it. Oh, I can't believe the boy in my car didn't top it up. He's such a selfish son of a gun. He said he didn't top it up. Oh, I can't believe it. I'm never going to lend in my car again. People are so selfish. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, wait, up the ante. Put that on Facebook. And we wonder why we're miserable. The mind is the source of the misery. The car is innocent, the gas tank is innocent. And the person who didn't fill your car up is innocent as well. No, they're not. Yeah, they are. No, they're not, Cheryl, you're wrong. Fair enough, I take that under advisement. Go discover for yourself. Human beings make mistakes. Do you ever make mistakes? Do you ever forget things? Do you ever break a promise on purpose, or probably more likely, because you're a really good bunch, by accident, by forgetfulness or busyness or not paying enough attention? Have you ever metaphorically or actually borrowed a car, intended fully to fill it up with gas, and then you got busy, distracted, or you forgot, or you went to the one gas station you usually use, but it closed early, and you were kind of hooped, and you had to leave it without gas in it? Whatever. Whether you've literally done that or not, you've certainly done similar things, because you're a human being. And I believe there's a quote from someone wiser than most of us that says, "To err is human. To forgive is divine." Forgive the moment for not being what you want it to be. Forgive reality for not bending to your will. If trying to fix reality to bend to our will was a successful plan, none of us would be in this room tonight. I wouldn't be. If I had, and believe me, I tried, if I'd been able to bend reality to my will and make things go the way I needed and wanted them to go, and make people behave the way I needed and want them to behave, good luck with that one, and wanted my health to be what I needed and wanted my health to be, and to make the correct kind of chocolate be in the chocolate drawer exactly when I need that type of chocolate, if I'd been able to successfully do that and many more things, I would never have turned to the Dharma. I would never have started to study Buddhism or the mind or meditation, because I would have been happy all the time, because everything would have been absolutely great. My health, my relationships, all the people around me, my car would be endlessly full of gas no matter what happened. Reality would be my absolute and utter best friend at all times. As a certain TV psychologist I don't particularly care for says, he's got one really good line, "How's that working for you?" It's a good line, I'll give him that. How is that working for you? Trying to get reality to bend to your will. Anybody succeeding right now? Going once, going twice, suffering. So, because we've all learned, because we're bright people, trying to negotiate life to make it be just what we need it to be, the job to be what we need, and the house to be what we need, and the neighbors to be what we need, and the dog and cats to behave the way we want, and not get old and not die, and so on and so on. We all failed. We're all failures in this room. Bunch of failures. So we turn to other things. We might turn to wholesome things. We might turn to unwholesome things. Ways to help us cope with reality, man. Okay. Reality's going to do what reality's going to do. Cancer's going to happen. Death's going to happen. Winning the lottery's going to happen. Getting the house of your dreams is going to happen. Falling in love's going to happen. Falling out of love's going to happen. All sorts of wondrous and difficult things are going to happen. That's reality. It's what we do about it that determines whether we suffer or not. And that's all in the mind. I'm fond of saying, your life is 100% mind-made. I want to get t-shirts. Put that on the list. Totally want a t-shirt. 100% mind-made. If you're upset and in consternation, it's 100% mind-made. Even if there's difficult circumstances that are the reality, the consternation is 100% mind-made. If you're happy, if you're having a good evening, that's 100% mind-made. It may be helped along with the fact that you had a good day and you got some positive feedback and work went well and you got some great news from a friend and just had a really pleasant meal. Lovely, I'm delighted. I love it when reality is easy on us. That's terrific. Enjoy the heck out of it while you can, because at some point it'll change and then it'll change back. But if you're in a great mental state tonight, it's 100% mind-made. If you're in a lousy mental state tonight, it's 100% mind-made. And if you're up and down, it's 100% mind-made. This is actually really good news. You want to know why? Of course you do. It's really good news because you can't, aforementioned facts, change reality very much. You can change your circumstances and negotiate things and create a wholesome space and leave a yucky job for a more wholesome job, absolutely. But you can't ultimately change reality, death, etc. But you can change your mind's reaction to reality. This is completely under your control. So that's the really, really, really good news. No matter what reality does, good, bad, ugly, in between, all over the place, changing all the time, you can change your mind, train your mind, and be in a great state, in Buddhist terms, be free of suffering, free of negative emotion, free of mental difficulty, no matter what's going on. That's why meditation is an extremely important discipline, an extremely important training, because the majority of us, the vast majority of us, can't get there without a trained mind. You may be a blessed, unique person, apparently, according to Buddhist statistics, maybe 1 in 100,000 people hear the truth of reality in these teachings and they wake up right away. The rest of us got to do a bunch of work. We've got to train the mind to this new way of thinking. We grew up in a culture and in families and in a country, many blessings, many benefits, but we grew up being taught, if you just work hard enough, if you just get a great relationship, you'll be fine. Or the secret to a happy life is. And then we found out those didn't work quite. Hopefully we all have pretty great lives. We're in a very lucky top 5.43% of the world in terms of our physical comforts, being middle-class Canadian folk. So we've mostly got pretty good lives in the regular senses. We're not fighting for our life every day. Our children are dying of starvation on our doorstep. We're not afraid to drink the water in our home because it will poison us, etc. Pretty good lives. But the suffering is in here and in the circumstances we can't control when they're difficult circumstances. And our work, our call to action is to train the mind. So no matter what happens, you're okay. Imagine that. No matter what happens, you're okay. You get dealt a whole bunch of really tough news tonight when you get home. People you love have died, you get a dreadful medical diagnosis, you get an eviction notice on your door frame when you get home, etc. Whole bunch of bad news. This has certainly happened to us in globs or in bits and pieces in all our lives so far, right? Really tough stuff. Trauma, abuse, loss, tremendous. Even in this room, these beautiful people, tremendous loss, trauma, and difficulty, right? Well, I can't take that away. And I can't stop every human being from having loss and trauma of some kinds. Also joy, ineffable beauty, tremendous opportunities for adventure, for growth, for learning, much good, much difficult. But I can point the way, wiser people than I, in a lineage that goes far, far, far back from this road, point the way to, you can work with your mind, and no matter what, you can be okay with it. So there's a bit of a sales pitch for the power of meditation, and I think I'll up the ante on that sales pitch. I'll share with you a summary of a number of studies over the last 5 to 20 years. Various studies around the brain and emotional impact of meditation in persons who meditate. And most of these studies are based on people, much like yourselves, who meditate for a few weeks or a few months or take an 8-week course. These aren't based on long-term 20-year meditators, although I hope you'll become long-term 20-year meditators. But the good news here is even if you start practicing now and practice every day or 3 days a week or 4 days a week for half an hour, come to classes like this, learn Dharma, apply what you're learning, work on training the mind, you too will get benefits. Not in a linear fashion. Certainly I didn't. I slogged away for ages and didn't seem to notice much of anything. I'll diverge now and tell you a story many of my students have heard a few times. But in my first 3-month retreat in the year 2000, I've been studying for 5 or 10 years at the time, but my first long retreat, I went to see the teacher, Rinpoche, the teacher I mentioned earlier, who died some years ago, and I went for a meditation interview. And I was working super hard, folks. I was really, really determined to help alleviate the suffering in this mind. There was a huge amount of suffering in this mind at that time. Tons of anxiety, terrible insomnia, depression, lots and lots of mental, emotional consternation. Really bad. Really, really bad. And so I was highly motivated to reduce that because I'm not a masochist and I don't like being in that kind of pain. And I tried many other things. I was sort of hanging on to the hope that this could help me feel better in the mind. So I was doing everything I was asked to do, and I was working really hard. I was meditating 8-10 hours a day, doing everything the teachers asked me to do diligently. I wasn't shirking. I wasn't laying around gazing at the ceiling, pretending I was meditating. I was working hard. And I didn't feel like I was noticing much. And it's about 2.5 months in to this long retreat. And I went to meet with the teacher, and he said, so, how's it going? I said, well, sir, I'm working really hard, but I'm not sure I'm doing it correctly or maybe hard enough because I'm not really noticing anything. He said, okay, fair enough. You not noticing anything? And I said, well, I'm a little bit calmer and I'm a little bit happier and I'm not freaking out as much when things go wrong, but I'm not noticing anything. And he kind of looked at me, his baleful look. Carry on. I honestly couldn't see it till I said it because I was expecting something much more dramatic. I was expecting something like, whoa, I'm just like in bliss all the time and nothing ever bothers me and I'm floating in a bubble of gold unicorn light, right? Some meditators experience that. They have a different style of mind, a different style of meditation experience. I just slogged away really, really, really hard and nothing was happening except I was a little bit happier, a little bit calmer. I was freaking out a little bit less some of the time. Arguably, those are significant changes. So I share that in the hopes it will inspire you. That if you're not getting golden Buddhas flying out of your ears, that's okay. But if once you got to the ferry and missed the ferry and had to wait for 2.5 hours at Dew Point, and you were like, oh, darn. Oh, well, I'll read a book. That's a major win. If that didn't used to be how you would have reacted. Oh, wait, I didn't freak out. And I often share this little tidbit as well. One of the ways you may notice that you're changing a little bit is other people who care about you will tell you. They'll say, when we got to the ferry and we missed it by 3 minutes because of all those red lights, in the old days you would have really freaked out. It was kind of nice. You took it with some grace and you'd be like, oh, I guess I did, thank you. It's really lovely when the people who love you say, hey, keep meditating. I spoke to one spouse, both spouses come to my classes, and I spoke to one of them recently, and that spouse said about the absentee spouse who hadn't been able to make it for a while. Yeah, I said to him the other day, gee, when are you going to go to class again? Point taken. Right? So, a few studies the last 5 to 15 to 20 years on, reasonably novice meditators, not, 20-year meditators. So there was one study from UCLA a few years ago that found as we age, and this was on longer term meditators because they looked at brains as we age, actually the gray matter and the deterioration in the brain itself, and they found participants who'd been meditating for an average of 20 years had more gray matter volume throughout the whole brain as they aged. And this was an important finding because the earlier findings on longer-term meditators found that they had more gray matter in certain areas of the brain associated with meditation, the kind of calming area of the brain and the kind of less anxiety area of the brain. This is a little simplified. If you're a neurochemist and neuroscientist, you know that, but it'll do for tonight. And this study found that actually the entire mass of the brain was less deteriorated as we age. That alone, if nothing else, people, especially you young people, get meditating. Keep your brain strong and fit as you age. The researchers said we expected a rather small and distinct effect, but instead we actually observed a widespread effect of meditation that encompassed regions throughout the entire brain. preserving the mass as we age, which is thought to be associated with cognitive flexibility and some other important things. This is really important, especially in our selfie age. I think in at least Western cultures, we are aware, and probably most of us subscribe to the following view, you don't all have to, that we tend to be a little bit self-centered. We tend to be an individualistic type of culture that talks about, our job and our fortune and our family and me, 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 me. Now in Buddhism, this is considered a root source of suffering because the more we self-reference and try to take care of number one and try to keep number one safe and comfortable and okay, the more sometimes we create problems for ourselves. That's another class for another day. But meditation reduces activity in the me center of the brain. This was a Yale University study, and there's multiple studies studying the default mode network. You may or may not be familiar with that term. The default mode network is the brain network that's responsible for mind wandering and self-referential thoughts, which we do a lot of the time. You're driving, your mind's wandering, you're thinking about yourself, what I'm going to do for dinner and what I want to do next weekend and how it was really cool when so-and-so gave me a compliment at work. I felt really good about that, and I don't think I like this music. I'm more of a headbanger. I'm going to change the station. Me, 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 me. Now, that wouldn't matter, except that other studies and Buddhist philosophy and theory and study indicates that the more we think about ourselves, the less happy we are, right? You know that from your everyday life, whether you've never meditated till tonight ever. You know that if you're all worried about yourself around a medium or a small problem, but you're quite upset and quite self-referential and worrying about you and how you're going to pay that $200 bill you weren't expecting and you're upset about it and it feels unfair. And then you run into a friend who has a bigger problem than you happening, you generally, because you're all very nice people in this room, I'm sure, you generally stop thinking about yourself for a bit and you switch your concern to them, yeah? Like, how can you help? Oh my goodness, that's really rough. How can I help? Sure, I'll give you a ride. Let me drive you home. And it feels better. The suffering you are in worrying about your problem melts away when you're concerned about someone other than you. So when we soften the focus on world drama starring me, we suffer less. So this default mode network in the brain is very important because it's associated with that sort of self-referential, daydreaming me, thinking about me all the time. And it's also called the monkey mind in meditation. That's the monkey mind, freaking out about everything and thinking about me and how to keep myself safe. And mind wandering is typically associated with being less happy. There's a number of studies where they give students a beeper, probably on their cell phone now, but it used to be a beeper, and they would randomly have this go off through the day, and they asked the students to note down what they were thinking of when the beep happened. And then they calculated the amount of self-referential me thoughts, and then they also did depression and anxiety screens, and they found that the more you were thinking about yourself in your relaxed, mind-wandering moments, the more you suffered. So meditation seems to quiet the default mode network. It seems to calm, not maybe take it away, but less is better. If you could be 5% less self-referential in your thinking, 10, 15% less self-referential in your thinking, you would be more happy and arguably more calm. And Johns Hopkins University, one of the Ivy League sort of top 5, top 10 medical schools in the United States, did an extensive study looking at comparing meditation to antidepressant medication to reduce the effects of anxiety, depression, and physical pain. And what they found is that the effects were the same. A small positive effect meditation had on depression, anxiety, and physical pain, the exact same level statistically of improvement as antidepressant medication. Be clear that the people meditating were not on meds. They weren't on any antidepressants, and they were compared against persons who were not meditating and were on antidepressants. Same effect. Which would you choose? It's up to you. It's a personal choice with you and your doctor and your psychologist, etc. But wow, meditation can do the same thing. You might want to add it to your regimen. More studies out of Harvard and elsewhere finding more, there's all sorts of data on changes in the key areas in the brain. I won't review it all here. And here's an interesting one. Just a few days training in meditation helped persons with ADD or other attentional issues, adults with ADD, not just a children issue, by trouble focusing, trouble being organized, trouble paying attention. these studies found that one of the central benefits of meditation, not surprisingly, is it helps people pay attention better. Witness the beginning of the class. We talked about training your ability to focus. If you have trouble focusing and you're all over the map and you can train your mind to focus a little bit better, you can have some improvements in your life when you're trying to focus on that grocery list or getting that job done on time, etc. This is true for all of us, but particularly helpful perhaps for those of us with some attention challenges above and beyond the regular attention challenges. Everybody has attention challenges, some people more so than others. And this was a big change. One recent study looking at the American GRE scores. The GRE is the Graduate Record Exam. It's sort of a high-level multiple choice exam you take if you want to go to graduate school, master's or PhD. I wanted to do some of my training in the States, so I took the GREs, and they were required in Canada at the time. So it's a big test. You go and it's about 4 or 5 hours test taking with a lunch break, and it's heavy duty security, so you can't cheat and all that. It's a pretty big deal. And it's got a verbal reasoning section where you're given your word problems and you have to figure out the answer and answer meanings and all this stuff, right? One study, and this one really surprised me actually, found that just a couple of weeks of meditation training helped people's focus and memory during taking the GRE, right? Just a few weeks of meditation training helped improve their ability to concentrate and therefore remember. To the extent that they actually increased their GRE scores by 16 percentile points, which effectively, but not quite, is like improving your score 16%. It's not quite the same, but close enough. Boy, I'll take that for a few weeks of meditation training. The GRE is one of the things that makes the breaking point as to whether you get chosen to go to grad school against someone else. So they're looking at 400 applicants for 20 positions. The GRE score is one of the things they consider. If you could boost that up, you've got a better chance of making the grade, literally and figuratively, into the career you want. Meditation is very useful. Meditation has also been shown to reduce anxiety and social anxiety. Social anxiety, as the term implies, are persons who become very anxious in social situations. They may be fine one-on-one, meeting a dear friend for coffee or dinner, no problem, no anxiety. But when there's a few people or they're meeting new people, they feel very shy, anxious, quite exposed, bit of a, like everybody's looking at me. Nothing to do with paranoia, nothing to do with psychosis. This is a somewhat common anxiety disorder, and meditation helps people cope with that, which makes a great deal of sense because, oh goodness, I feel really anxious, I don't like being in this room, is a physical, mental story. If you can then say, okay, yeah, I'm uncomfortable, but that's okay. I'll be able to handle it, using the mind to calm the body, taking some breaths, saying this is tough, but I can get through this. I work with patients a lot on this sort of self-talk when they're anxious about something, that they have plan A, B, and C. If they're really afraid to, say, go to a big party, plan A might be, if I'm finding myself overwhelmed, I'll excuse myself to go to the bathroom. I always use that one because no one says you can't do that. So you can always excuse yourself to go to the bathroom. It gives you a chance to regroup, do a little breathing, do a little calming, do a little self-talk. Go back. Then they might have plan B. Look for someone you know or who doesn't look too scary if you don't know anyone. Approach that person and say, hi, my name's Cheryl, what's your name? Plan C might be go outside, walk around a little bit, calm yourself, and try again. So meditation has been shown to help calm that anxiety and help the person work with their distressing thoughts. Also some great research on helping with addiction, and that makes a great deal of sense. Why? If I'm addicted to cigarettes, alcohol, sex, drugs, television, exercise, lattes, video games, whatever it is, when I feel a little bit bored or a little bit uncomfortable, a feeling of agitation builds where I want my substance to calm me down. And that substance generally works for a while, right? That's a pretty strong reinforcer then. I feel really uncomfortable, I take my substance, I feel better. Of course, that creates an urge to repeat that next time I'm uncomfortable. Perfectly valid, perfectly sensible. Except maybe the substance I'm reaching for isn't, in the big picture of my life, good for me. How do I learn to not do it? Is willpower enough? All the research shows that that's a pretty sketchy thing to place yourself on. It's helpful, but it's not enough. Mindfulness and meditation can help us tolerate being uncomfortable. Let me repeat that. Meditation can help us learn to tolerate being uncomfortable. So being uncomfortable is what, people? Uncomfortable. We don't like it because we're not fools. We'd like to feel comfortable instead of uncomfortable, correct? If I had put tacks on all of your seats and there was a tack in your buttocks right now, that would be uncomfortable, correct? You'd prefer to remove it and have a buttock that was less pained, correct? Right, because nobody's crazy here. So wanting to feel comfortable is sane. However, if we run from thing to thing to thing, constantly trying to feel comfortable, we're in an addictive cycle. We're all addicts. You're all addicts in this room, every single one of you, in this country, in this society, on this planet, are addicts in that we don't do a very good job of tolerating being uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable for a few minutes, you whip up your phone and play a game, text a friend, you daydream, you look around for something interesting. Mindfulness and meditation help us learn to sit with being uncomfortable. You just did it for 20 minutes. You weren't comfortable that whole time. Your body wasn't comfortable, some of you. Your mind wasn't comfortable, the majority of you. But you learned to tolerate just sitting with it. None of you went and had a cigarette. None of you pulled out your phone. Good thing, I would have had something to say about that. You tolerated your discomfort. Hopefully it was fairly mild discomfort, but you were rehearsing tolerating discomfort. Bravo. So if you have an addictive pattern and you feel uncomfortable, of course we want to reach for the thing that soothes the discomfort because we're not that great at sitting with discomfort. You see where this is going? It's already gone there. Meditation helps you learn to do a better job of tolerating discomfort. When you can tolerate your discomfort, you have more choice around not reaching for the addiction object of choice. Another good reason to meditate. And shout out to all the children in the world, including in your lives. Short meditation breaks can help kids in school. They did a great study at a very low-income, tough school in the San Francisco School District, and they instituted a twice-daily meditation program. I think it was just 5 or 10 minutes of meditation twice a day. And they saw fewer suspensions, increase in the grade point average, and increase in attendance. And that was a very beleaguered school with really poverty-stricken kids from very difficult traumatic homes. And we've certainly seen wonderful results in more highly functioning school areas and highly functioning kids. One of my favorite little quotes from Mindfulness of Emotion and Mindfulness teaching, I think kids in about grade 2, I can't remember where I heard this. I think I heard it from a teacher, but they said one of their favorite comments was, they're just teaching, imagine, you're breathing in happy thoughts and you're breathing out grumpy thoughts, things like that. And they taught kids that if they feel angry or upset, they don't have to do something about it right away, much like the addiction bit I just talked about. And one little boy came up to her and said something along the lines of, I don't have the memory precise, so I apologize for that. Something along the lines of, I just found out that when I have an angry thought, it's just an angry thought. I don't have to do anything. Grasshopper. This is a major breakthrough you all can learn something from. When you have an angry thought, it's just an angry thought. You don't have to do anything about it. And he actually said, before I would have wanted to go hit George. Now I just knew it was an angry thought. Wow. What a brilliant insight. This kid was like in grade 2. So, today was a free ad for meditation. A free commercial for meditation. Why do something that's pointless? Please don't. Why spend time doing something that's arguably pretty difficult some of the time? If it didn't yield something valuable, please don't. If this didn't yield something valuable, I would not be here. I've got better things to do than waste your time and mine. I have found through my own experience and through the tremendous sharings of so many of the students I've had the pleasure to be with, of my friends who are deep in the meditation, and most importantly my teachers who are infinitely more wise than I, that the more you train the mind, the more you notice positive change. in your brain, in your emotions, in your relationships. No, meditation is not a panacea, the magic drug. Just take it and everything will be fine. Anybody who says that to you is a false teacher, and you should run rapidly in the opposite direction. Seriously. Anyone who says, oh, this will fix everything, you'll be fine, run in the opposite direction. They don't understand meditation, the mind, or Buddhism. That's for darn sure. Just saying. But these trainings yield results for all of us in our own herky-jerky way. Our own graphs might be like this, right? That's okay. Over time, just like training the body, if you put in the time at the gym or hiking or lifting your weights or in your yoga practice, ideally all of them, multifactorial approach to fitness, you want cardio, you want strength training, you want flexibility training. Same with the mind. We want to train concentration. We want to train the open awareness practice. I didn't speak of that tonight. I'll speak of it another time. We want to train the heart. Buddha Dharma is not just be a great meditator. No, that's not Buddha Dharma. Buddha Dharma is cultivate meditation and cultivate your compassion, your heart, your willingness to help others. Move away from constant self-referencing and trying to take care of number one and see that everyone suffers. You're not special. You're all very special, but you're not special. Your story is somewhat unique. Your circumstances are somewhat unique, yes. But we all suffer. The richest, the poorest, the most blessed with quite easy lives with next to no trauma and very little difficulty other than running out of gas, they suffer too. And persons in heinous, brutal circumstances, far, far worse than we could even imagine suffer. And everybody in between. And they have joy, and they have happiness, and they have light. Buddha Dharma is not a negative teaching. It's not a, we all suffer, life is terrible, at all. It's actually the opposite. Life is wondrous. Happiness is always available. Let's train the mind away from suffering so we can involve the mind, body, behavior, and heart in the abundance of life, of caring for self and other, of being of service, of doing wholesome work that matters, wholesome recreation that fills us up, of studying and sharing things that actually help deliver us from suffering. So it's not just about meditating, but training the mind is a heck of a good place to start. And when the mind is a bit more trained, just a bit, 2% more, 5% more than it is now, you'll probably notice you're a little less selfish some of the time, and that's terrific. And you're a little more thoughtful some of the time. And you're a little more available for someone else some of the time. And that's a beautiful, profound, deeply wonderful thing. Most of us come to this study because of our suffering. That's a fantastic motivation. It was certainly mine. And then through the training of deepening and broadening our mind and our heart, we start to be moved to try to help other people in our own ways. That just might mean being the most cheerful person at the Safeway checkout. It might mean teaching or sharing in some more formal way. It can be all sorts of things. Giving a day a week or a day a month to a charity service, etc., etc. Having a cheerful smile for someone who looks like they're having a tough mind day. Many ways to serve. Buddha Dharma is about the heart and the mind, and living a life that is wholesome and compassionate and based on good activity. And that's what I hope to help each and every one of us, certainly this imperfect being, cultivate and grow within. So on that note, we'll bring things to a close. We'll meditate together just for about 4 or 5 minutes. And then I'll ring the bell 3 times. And then I'll offer a dedication of the miracle. See if you can focus entirely on one single breath. Now we close, as I suggest you close any meditations you do at home. It's called a dedication of the merit. Merit essentially means the strengthening. So it means we gather kind of the good intentions and good qualities and good efforts we've made together by meditating and studying some wise teachings of Dharma. And we dedicate it to ourselves and to all beings. It's that way of working with compassion and remembering not to just always have the mind tuned to the me channel, but to also remember all beings. So a simple dedication of merit is for the sake of all beings, and we take the merit gathered by these strengthening activities, and may we utilize it to awaken for ourselves and for all beings. May all beings be well, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering, and may all beings dwell in equanimity, not reacting when reality doesn't go the way we want. Thank you for spending your evening with us.